Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ray, for being here. My background, I was a former prosecutor. I was a judge for 22 years. During that time in the criminal courts, I had always thought that the FBI had a stellar reputation. In the last few years here in Congress, I don't have that belief any longer. And I think your predecessor did a lot to damage the reputation of the FBI. I don't think that the FBI has come back around with that stellar reputation, and that's unfortunate. You gave us lots of statistics in the opening statement that you made about what the FBI is doing. I want to talk about FISA, secret courts issuing secret warrants, supposedly to go after terrorists overseas. A recent our Washington Post article made the comment or stated that when information is seized on bad guys, there's the so-called seizure of information that belongs to Americans, inadvertent as it's called by the legal community. And in that database are Americans and non-Americans. In the Washington Post article, quote, says, many of them in this database were Americans. 90% of the account holders whose communications were collected under 702 were not the intended targets. And about half of the surveillance files were on Americans. So you have this database that's supposed to go after the bad guys, and you get that information, but inadvertently you pick up all of this information on Americans who have nothing to do with terrorism. How many times has this database been queried, I call the word searched, to find out if there are identifiers on Americans? How many times has the FBI or the intelligence agency or government done that?
Congressman, I don't have numbers for you here today. I will tell you that the database that we're talking about is not bulk collection on anyone, first. Number two, it is a database of foreigners reasonably believed to be located overseas for foreign intelligence purposes. That's what's collected by the NSA.
I may interrupt you. Reclaiming my time. But I'm talking about the inadvertent seizure of information based on this idea we're going after terrorists. How many people have been queried, searched in that big database? That's my question.
And Congressman, I don't have the statistics for you. I can give you one number that may be helpful to you in answering your question, which is that of what the NSA collects, that the FBI only receives, much less queries against, about 4.3% of what the NSA collects. And the individuals that are incidentally collected, the U.S. person information that's incidentally collected, are people who are in communication with foreigners who are the subject of foreign intelligence investigation. So like an ISIS recruiter, if there's a U.S. person picked up, that person would have been in email contact, for example, with an ISIS recruiter.
Understand that. I'm not talking about terrorism. I'm talking about the inadvertent where there's a communication with an American, and that American's information is seized and then later searched by whether it's the intelligence community or the FBI. The Washington Post said 90% of those seizures were on non-terrorists. Do you agree or disagree with that statistic?
I haven't reviewed the Washington Post article.
This committee has asked for a long time to give us that information because we are now coming up with FISA reauthorization. My opinion is that the FBI and the intelligence service is backwalking that information because they know FISA comes up at the end of this year and then Congress would just reauthorize it without knowing how many Americans are searched. The right of privacy in the Fourth Amendment is guaranteed. I'm sure you believe this. But it is being abused and stolen by government in this situation on what's happening to Americans. And the search of that database, whether it's the first query, which is a search, or a later specific search of that communication, is being done in secret by our government. And Congress, Judiciary Committee, is entitled to that information. And I will disagree with what you said about, well, it's classified. I can't tell you that. That's ridiculous. Congress is entitled, members of Congress are entitled to every classified piece of information that is in your possession. That is our position, that is our right as members of Congress. So government can't have classified information and say, hey, we're not going to tell you because it's classified. We're entitled to it in some type of setting. So I totally disagree with you on that. I hope you can provide us that information before we reauthorize FISA. Otherwise, I'm going to vote against FISA. And I'll yield back to the chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may I briefly respond?
The director may respond.
First off, as to classified information, we are engaged with the intelligence committees, and we share classified information with the intelligence committees all the time. And then under certain circumstances, as the chairman noted, we are also sharing classified information with the authorizing committees, like the 2 judiciary committees. As to the question of abuses, every court to have looked at the way in which Section 702 is handled, including the querying, has concluded that it's being done consistent with the Fourth Amendment, as has the Independent Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board. And there has been no abuse found in the 702 program, despite oversight by the Inspector General, multiple sections of oversight within the executive branch, oversight by the federal FISA court, and oversight by the intelligence communities.
And I disagree with the secret courts on their interpretation of the Fourth Amendment, as does many other members of Congress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen. His time has expired. I just want to reiterate, as with the other request, this is a reasonable request by the gentleman from Texas.